Hello, everybody, and welcome to Holy Moments in Holy Places, our Facebook Live today. I hope everybody's doing well on this Tuesday. It's been kind of rainy off and on, but the sun did actually come out for a little while, which was nice. While I was getting ready for the show today, I was being very entertained by a deer in our backyard. My husband uh, protesting because the deer was eating his strawberry plants. So it was a highly entertaining morning. Today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite holy places. It is officially known as, I have to get my notes out here because it is long, the Collegiate Church of the Holy and Undivided Trinity. That's the official name. The name that everybody calls it is Holy Trinity Church in Stratford upon Avon in England. It's in the county, I believe, in Warwickshire. We have, it could be Gloucestershire, but I'm pretty sure it's Warwickshire. It is the birthplace and the death place of the bard, William Shakespeare. And this particular church happens to be where he was baptized and where he was buried. We'll get to that in a minute. So, what you need to know about this particular church is I've been there twice. Once in 2017. Yes, once in 2014 and once in 2017. Hard to keep my days straight. And in the 2014 visit, I was with my daughter's drama excursion group, and there really wasn't a lot of time to explore it. But I can tell you a strange thing that happened that just put it in me that I needed to go back to this place. It was when I had gone into the church and we had taken pictures by Shakespeare's tomb and all of that, which I'll show you pictures of in a minute. But as I was walking out of the church, down the pathway through the churchyard where all the graves are, towards the street where we were going to go visit Shakespeare's daughter's house, my camera started going crazy. It was not photographing the right way. The colors were all off. It was shooting in black and white instead of color. It was just, my camera's a digital camera, brand new camera, and it just started going crazy. And the pictures that it took were really strange. I would show them to you, except for once again, those particular pictures have gone astray somewhere. It's been a few years. And they're in the to be scrapbooked pile somewhere in the house. So when I got home, I started to try to look at the pictures and try to see if there was something significant that I should be noticing in these pictures. I always sort of read more into that probably than I should. And like I said, Stratford affected me in a way. The whole town did. I just felt at home there instantly when I got there. And so I really wanted to go back. When we were able to take a family trip for my 25th wedding anniversary with my husband, we took the kids with us, my adult children, and visited again. Of course, the Royal Shakespeare Company is there and other things. So I'm going to show you a picture of the church. Hopefully I'm doing a little bit better with technology today. Here's a picture of the church. It's right on the River Avon. It is so beautiful. I can't even begin to tell you. And the river is gorgeous. There's swans swimming around. I mean, it's just fantastic. And then I need to show you some other pictures. And let me pull those up here. Here they are. Okay. Let's see. Let me expand my. expand my screen here. And all right. So this is another view of the church, and you can see the churchyard around it. So the second visit we made to the church was in 2017. We'll get back to those buildings in just a minute. You can see some of the beautiful grave markers, and as well as the sarcophagus that's right behind it. That is part of the church behind those grave markers. And these were all, this is part of it along the river. And there's a reason I took that picture. I'll get back to that also in a minute. Okay. That is right adjacent to the church. In behind the bench there, you'll even see a vault where there is a body buried. So that's how close it is to the river. It's just right there. When it floods, in fact, they have a few things. This is another perspective of the building. And then I just had to take a picture of these two lonely little grave markers there next to the church. Here's a picture of the inside of the church. As you can see, it's heavily decorated. It was built in, it was kind of started way back in the 1400s, but changes were made, and the church, mostly as we know it, was built in the late 14, early 1500s. So slightly before Shakespeare's time. So it was a reasonably new church when Shakespeare was baptized there in 1564. And he was buried there in 1616. So it was, a little over 100 years old when he was buried there. Hard to think of it now that way. There's Shakespeare. And then here is a picture of the family plot, so to speak. So this is all of Shakespeare's family, all buried under the floor of the church in the catacombs that are beneath. Now, this was reserved strictly for the wealthy of the area. And you had to be pretty darn special to be buried within the walls of the church. Almost everybody was buried outside. There's a couple of tombs here and there. There's one here. But this is a special little chapel that's just reserved for the Shakespeares. Here's another little chapel area. Well, this is a little bit closer up in the same chapel. Excuse me. I thought this was a little area. There's an old Bible they had there. Okay, this is a good view of what the inside, where people actually sit and enjoy worship, looks like. And then the beautiful pipe organ that's up on top, up in like what we would call our choir loft, is really the organ loft there. And then once again out into the graveyard. Here's Shakespeare's tomb. So you may or may not know, you see some words written there that say, "Good friend, for Jesus' sake forbear to dig the dust enclosed here. Blessed ye be man who spares these stones, and cursed be he who moves my bones." And so supposedly this was put there in an effort to keep people from moving his body from Stratford to Westminster Abbey, which we visited. Whoops. Well, we're going to go back here. All right. Enough. Well, let's go back to the other building. So that's kind of a legend that's behind this whole thing. Let's go back to the pictures of those two buildings. Yes, this building and this building. This is the new extension that they built in 2015. And this window, you'll be interested to know, was hidden by the organ. And so they were able to get it out and use it. And it's got some necessary facilities. This building here, it represents what's called a charnel house. And keep that in your mind. It's a very old building. And I'm going to gather you back here. Oh, tell you what, technology is crazy. Um, anyway, that particular building, the charnel house, was a place. No, let me back up. So, on our second visit, I was really particularly curious about graves. As you know, I love to visit historic cemeteries and find the stories of the people that are buried there. And I wanted to know what the oldest grave in the churchyard was and if they had a plan as to who was buried where. Because I also found on those pictures that I had taken in 2014 that where my camera went crazy, there was a headstone. I wanted to just check out the name and see if they had any records. And the verger, I was speaking to the verger there. As you remember, a verger is the caretaker slash assistant of the rector or vicar of the church. And I had a wonderful conversation with him. He was absolutely fascinating to listen to, friendly, and amazing. I would go to church there in a heartbeat. He was so great. Plus, it's 500-year-old church. I'll go there. Thank you very much. Anyway, he was explaining to me that really the graves out in the gravestone, the oldest one was about 1690, because he said back in the day, he said there's a lot of people that have been buried here over the centuries, and if you weren't buried inside the church, your grave was at risk of being moved because there's only so much holy ground. So what would happen is that the grave diggers would come and they would dig the graves of the newly dead and put them in the ground. And then if they weren't marked in any way. Grave markers are a reasonably new thing. In Shakespeare's time, they were not really a thing. So they would dig the grave, and sometimes when they would go to dig the grave, there would already be somebody buried there. They didn't really keep good records and didn't know. And so they would okay, well, we can't bury anybody there. So they'd move on to another spot until they found a clear spot to bury people. Not a very good method in my eyes, but they would move on to another spot. And then they would bury the person. Well, eventually the graveyard would become completely full and they could not find a single place to bury anybody. When that happened, they would dig up an area of the graveyard, get all of the bones, and put them in something called a charnel house, which is that building that I showed you a picture of. Okay? And the charnel house, they would take and put all the bones in the more decayed bodies, because they would go into they would sort of kind of have a little bit of a plan. In other words, there's older parts of the graveyard. They knew the graves were older than the newer parts. So they would start in the older parts and move their way around. And kind of then eventually they would rotate and rotate. Take the bones, put them in the charnel house, wait for everything to turn to bone completely. And then it would take a while. Okay. And then they would take all those bones and build a big mound with them. And the priest at that time, because it was a Catholic church, and it was the church was badly damaged during the Reformation, as a matter of fact. So stuff to do with that. But anyway, they would burn the bones, okay, in what they called a bone fire. Now, bone fire is where we get the word bonfire from. It was a big fire, and they would put the bones all and burn them down to ash. And they would take the ash and they would spread it in the churchyard around, and then they would be able to have that area to bury people in again. So it would serve them well, but there weren't great records. And also those folks who were buried there and their families could know that they were still in consecrated ground. That was a really huge thing back then. So I just thought that was fascinating. Now, fast forward back to our trip. So I'm gonna go back to my photograph of. Sorry, let me get my other screen up here. Oh my goodness, that was fun. Well, we're not going to do that. That was just crazy, wasn't it? Whoa. Okay. Um, let's try that again. Shall we? Let's try that again. There we go. That's what we want. So this picture is of the bench along the River Avon. It is where I chose to sit for a very long time as we were visiting. I told my family, if you want to go off and do your own thing for a while, that's fine. But I really just want to be here for a while. Just be and talk to God, which I did. And I sat in that place and watched the boats travel up and down the River Avon. And I thought about my place in the world. And I thought about Shakespeare and what the world was like when he had been alive. And then it hit me. I realized that God is the same God that Shakespeare knew that I now know. And it was a really chilling moment in my life where, I don't mean chilling in a bad way. I mean, it really showed me how eternal God is and how I am so tiny in comparison to God's mightiness. And yet God loves me to provide for me in this world. Amazing, isn't it? So I thought, God is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And it was beside this river, next to this holy place, that I had a holy moment with God where I realized my place in the world is every bit as important, that I matter as much to God as Shakespeare or a president or the poorest of the poor. We all are loved by God. We are all precious in God's sight. And so I just wanted to leave you with that and let you know that that is true not only for me, but it's also true for you, that God loves you, that God has a special place for you in this world, that you are important every day. And I hope that you don't need to visit the River Avon in order to have that epiphany. I hope that you will be able to have it right here or wherever you're sitting right now. But if you ever get a chance to visit Stratford upon Avon, I recommend it. It is, if you like Shakespeare. I happen to really like Shakespeare. Also, Google the Oxford Shakespeare theory if you're really interested in Shakespeare. There's a story there, lads and lasses, let me tell you. So I hope you will all have a good week. I'm going to see you again on Thursday, and I think we're going to be talking about a place. Let me just give you a little teaser. The number 3 has something to do with it, and it doesn't have to do with the Holy Trinity. It's someone's name that has a 3 attached to it. So I'll leave that dangling out there in cyberspace. I hope you guys all stay well, be good, wear your mask, stay 6 feet apart. We'll get through this together. Take care, everybody. See you soon. Okay, and now I have to figure out how I'm going to stop streaming.